Welcome everybody to Extreme Off-Road Silly Bills, and today we're dealing with the 2009 Mercedes-Benz SL65 AMG Black Series. So this now has 1046 horsepower, 1017 pounds-feet of torque from its 6.3 litre twin-turbocharged V12 engine. The car itself now weighs 3,461 pounds, has off-road tyres, all-wheel drive and off-road suspension, and it can now do 0 to 60 in 2.369 seconds, 0 to 104.892 seconds, and going to a top speed of 212 miles an hour. So yeah, overall the stats are pretty good on this, especially for a car that is obviously more of a a sports car, supercar than an off-road vehicle. Yeah, the acceleration, launch, and the braking are pretty good. Off-road capability is solid for a vehicle of this type. The only real issue is the handling, which isn't all that great, and yeah, especially not all that great in comparison to the last car that we chose on this series, which was the Mercedes-AMG GT Black Series, which is the modern equivalent of this car. But that topped the leaderboard, quite frankly, and by a significant margin, more than a second quicker than the Pagani Huayra R, which briefly led the leaderboard. So yeah, I'm not expecting this, with it being an older version basically of that car, to be as quick, but it's going to be interesting to see where an older version of the Black Series can come, especially since this was the first of the Black Series vehicles from AMG. So yeah, let's see what it can do basically. Now, I don't have the anti-lag on the turbochargers because if you thought they were loud on previous cars, they were extremely loud on this, and yeah, I just could not for the life of me concentrate with them popping away like mad. So yeah, that won't help the initial acceleration, or really the acceleration out of corners for some of them, but it's not going to affect it too much because it doesn't add any extra power. Just makes the torque more prevalent lower down the rev range than it would be normally. This is hardly a low revving engine though, so most of the power is towards the top end. Oh, didn't deal with the bump all that well. Rear end lifted up really high. There's a lot of understeer. There's obviously a much bigger engine in this than in the GT Black Series, which means there's a lot more weight up front to deal with, which is not helpful when you've got all-wheel drive that you never had originally. But apart from not landing all that well, it's overall dealing with everything else okay. Rates of speed. Nearly missed that checkpoint, just about got it. Yeah, it's not the most nimble of things by any means, but I've certainly had far worse similar cars. Brakes are really helping, especially since it's not the lightest of vehicles going. Oh dear. Kinda screwed that one up by washing out wide after that checkpoint here. Go. Just needed a bit more braking force and we were alright, so we've used one of our rewinds, but unlikely to need the next two. Not trying to jinx it though. Oh. Slightly overcooked it there. Lots of understeer again, which is slowing us down. But that's still a reasonably good time. We're in the top 10 with 3 minutes 14.061, but inevitably it is slower than the GT Black Series in the previous episode, which still reigns supreme at 3 minutes 9.965 seconds. So yeah, we're about 4 or so seconds slower than that car, but considering there's a 12-year gap and this car weighs more than that car. It weighs nearly 300 pounds more. Its 0 to 60 time is nearly 0.3 of a second slower. It's more than 0.8 of a second slower to 100. And yeah, it didn't quite get up to the kind of speeds that the GT Black Series did at times as well. So yeah, and it also had more horsepower than this, although we did have more torque. So yeah, that definitely helped in some aspects. But yeah, the fact it didn't deal with the landing on that big jump all that well, and the massive amounts of understeer at times, yeah, just ultimately slowed us down a little bit. But still, that is a cracking time. Puts into 7th place, beating the MG Metro 6R4, the GMC Hummer EV pickup, the Nissan Z car, and it knocks the AMC Rebel Le Machine out of the top 10. So yeah, to be quicker than a rally car like the MG Metro is fairly impressive for a vehicle of this type. And yeah, we're not all that far behind the RJ Anderson Polaris RZR Pro 4 truck either, which again is obviously an off-road vehicle. So overall, fairly impressed by this car, especially considering it is one of the older cars I've had on this series to make it into the top 10. Only the MG Metro is the car that is older than this. Every other car is a good 10 or so years newer. So yeah, fairly impressive overall, even if it did have its flaws. Nonetheless, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.